The worksheet commands will go through a variety of functions. We'll spend a fair number of minutes on this one. And most of my focus will be more so on the cell categories, and also a little bit on splitting sheets and such. And a little bit later I'm going to spend a little more time on the merging of sheets, so I'm going to kind of skip over that one for now, because that's more of a join command and something I want to do in the kind of audit analytics section. So in the worksheet commands themselves, again, I keep talking about some of the cell conversion work, but before then, let me just kind of start off by saying things like the split sheet I find very interesting, and something where you have to be a little bit careful that you don't create something that's too large. But we can do this in a few different ways. If I wanted to split the sheet by date, which again, just taking the enter date and just doing it by year in this case. I mean, we could do it by day of week, which would be really kind of interesting, but let me just do it by year. And again, I have about 5 or 6 years of data within now this data set, and each one has been thrown to a different tab in the spreadsheet. So looking at 2009 and 2010. Now, John showed this, but I just want to kind of show you, once you've split your sheet, the other thing that you could split on is by group. And just taking a look at that as well, I'm a little nervous of doing this. Let me just, I'm going to quickly filter just to see how many groups I have. Well, there's probably about 20 here. So what I could do, just to kind of quickly show this, is I'm going to create a type field over on the right hand side and just put like an A in it, and just go down for a fair number of rows and hit enter, and then for the remainder here, kind of put a B in there and just kind of go down for the remainder of the rows. And bear with me one second as I just get that set up. So just imagine we had a type field in there, A and B, and you could have various type fields set up, obviously, but what we then do is go back to our active data, and we could say split sheet by group. And in this case, we could group things by type, and we could copy each group to a separate sheet. We could separate groups by blank rows within the same sheet, etc. But I'm going to do it in this way. And what's nice about the group, as opposed to the date, is that you have various other options. So I mean, you could do it by type and PO number, and and you can have blank lines in your data for each kind of subsection of that data. But if we hit the finish button here, rightly so, we have group A and we have group B now in our data. And like John noted, we have the drill down functionality to kind of get us back to the original row if we wanted to, but we don't have to have that. I just find it very useful, instead of sitting here and having to go back into 2009, and probably many of you do this, where you have to kind of go to your filter, filter out at the A's, or maybe sort it, and like I was doing, which is very time consuming, is just sitting here and scrolling down and hoping to find the end of the A's. Where does the A end? That's something that, again, using the group by is very good. And again, in a lot of ways, I think there probably are a fair number of auditors on the call today, but active data really is very useful for not only auditors but also for non-auditors, accountants, that just need to utilize Excel spreadsheets and use them in kind of better ways. Okay, so now that we have A and B set up, I figured this actually, maybe I'll take 2009 and 2010 again. I'm not sure there's going to be a whole lot of where there are the same data in between the two. But John showed the compare sheet, and I did want to just quickly show that again to note, for one thing, that you would then be able to compare your data between 2009 and 10. And if you're good with pivot tables, there's again a way that you can do this with pivot tables, and it will take you a little bit of time, and you'd have to set up the columns, and you'd have to set up a difference column, which is a calculated column, and never seems to work all that well. There's ways of doing this. Again, let's do this by vendor number here, and we'd like to total the invoice amount in each one. Grouping by vendor number, summarizing invoice amount. You could have other fields, but we'll just keep this simple. Hitting the finish button, again, it's going to do this comparison of, and I don't, I guess I do have a few that are in both spreadsheets, which is nice to see that you have, say, this vendor 1020139 that had 3 invoices in 09, 11 invoices in 2010, and John showed how you can drill down. But again, it creates this count difference automatically. It actually provides you both of the totals here, which all of this could be done in a pivot table if you took the time, but to be able to just kind of click on compare sheets, push a button, push another button, press enter, is just a much quicker and nicer way of handling things. Okay, some of the other tasks, I'm just going to skip over merging and querying because we're going to talk about that a little bit later over here in the analysis commands. Sorting to a new sheet, I don't use it as much because it does kind of create a copy of my spreadsheet, but I'll just show you how to do this here. We could sort, say, by vendor numbers, and we can click on the columns to carry over. So I guess we could decide, let me not bring over that PO number. It looked blank anyway, so why do we need it? And hit the finish button. What it'll do then is not only create the invoices paid, but it creates a new tab, sorted invoices paid, which has now all of the sorted items in one place. So it's kind of a useful, I find a very useful function as well. Continuing on here, duplicate sheet. If again, many of you do this like I do, I take this sheet and you could copy it this way, and this is one way of doing it where you copy it. Another way is you could right click down here and you go move or copy, and you say create a copy and say put it right here. That's another way of doing this, and that created a copy of the spreadsheet. But it's nice to have it as just clicking on duplicate sheet, and it completes creates a complete duplicate of that previous sheet. So again, things that just make things a little bit easier just by pushing buttons and getting what you need. I'm going to skip over the rows section for today. I don't use it as much. I mean, there is a way of tagging rows, say by example, by formula. Like I'll just kind of do one here just to oh geez, let me not do that. I don't use it as much because it's something where then it will kind of put a tag over in this right hand side for anything that you've decided to tag. But did want to show that to you, and it's mostly around tags. But let me continue on to columns. From a column point of view, I'm going to clean up my spreadsheets here a little bit because it's getting a little difficult to follow. Hold on one second here. And I probably could have used John's revert to saved worksheet, and that would revert me back to my previously saved worksheet. That's a nice little tool. But I am going the old-fashioned way because I'm still a little paranoid, so I try to do it that way. Okay, great. So back to maybe taking, say, this vendor data here, and this is a great set to work with this type of information. We have a vendor address field here, and what we can do is split columns depending on what is in that data. So now many of you, I mean, just to show you, many of you might use the text to columns, and that is another Excel function. You could say delimited. You have a few different functions here that you can select on. It's quite limited. I mean, when you look at it, if you have a space, if you have a tab, it works pretty well, but it's quite limited. When you're in active data and you say columns, split columns, you have quite a bit of functionality here. You could split from the left side. We were using this a lot with Benford law calculations. That's one example. The leftmost number that you'd want to get. Split from the middle. You could split the debit and credit values out of an item, the negatives and the positives. I'm actually just taking a look here. Let me say I'll split columns into words. The one thing that I really liked about this, not only can I say, because I noticed there's a lot of spaces in here, so we'll split maybe the numbers within the address from the rest of the address. And most addresses start with a number, so it's kind of common to start with a number here. So let me just then go back and say, okay, if there's a space, I could have an alternate delimiter, so now I could have two delimiters, but let me just keep it at that. And I'm going to say the maximum number of words, which I don't believe Excel can do this, where you can kind of stop the delimiting process at wherever you want. And what that's going to do, I could change the column name as well, but I'll just keep it like that. And we have space, none, 2 is maximum words, and word, no clicked on, so that's why. So what happens is it only delimited to that first couple. So again, it didn't keep going and show every one, but really just kind of stopped at that second one. And I find that really useful when you're delimiting data and trying to kind of split data. And I really feel, between the columns, the cell, I'd probably even say the merge when we get to it a bit, this is where we do a lot of data conversion type techniques. And probably many of you, if you've ever worked with data analysis long enough, you find that you're constantly converting data and trying to make it more usable in the tool that you're working with. And I find that the column approach allows you to really I guess be able to kind of split things up as needed. And the other thing from a column point of view is then you could combine columns, so now we can kind of go back and put together, the Humpty Dumpty that we ended up destroying here. And in the combining columns as well, we also are able to bear with me one second. I'm just combining columns. I can put, say, the word number 1. I can now put a dash in there, or I could put whatever I'd like, and then word number 2 and hit finished. Then that will kind of combine those columns together. So bear with me 1 minute here. So kind of going back here to the columns. The other one that I really like and I utilize a lot, we'll just go over to this invoices paid spreadsheet, is arranging columns. And again, Excel 2010, it's gotten a little bit better where you can say cut and come over here and right click and say insert cut cells, and it'll like move it over there. And that does a pretty good job. But I always feel like I'm going to mess that up and not do a good job in bringing that over. So another approach that you can utilize is the arranging columns. And just, if you can watch this, if I have the enter date, I can move it up 1, and notice the enter date is moving over to the left now. Hopefully you can see that. And you can just kind of move it over. You can actually move it to a section and say, okay, I want it right about there, and hit the selected button, and boom, it puts it right there. You could add things, you could reformat, if you wanted to reformat the data as well. That's all allowable, within what we're doing here. But I just find, in moving my columns around, or possibly even hiding or unhiding those columns, I just find that a very, very useful tool. Okay, and just one last thing here is basically taking a look at the cell. Let me just make sure I think for the most part I've tackled almost everything here. I mean, there is the calculated column as well, where you can add a formula here and have a variety of different formulas here. It's a little beyond the scope of today. I mean, there are some formulas in there. I'll be honest, I mean, I tend to just kind of click on this function button a lot, so I end up using more of the insert function to do a calculated field. But again, Active Data does provide the ability to add a calculated column and utilize that approach as well. Okay, so this is the part where I do spend a lot of my time I find is very useful. And just bear with me 1 minute here. I think I created a little bit of a spreadsheet that I could utilize for today, and I thought I saved it, but I may not have, and may need to may need to just recreate it quickly. Yeah, so let me just recreate it quickly, just in the interest of time. Just imagine you're doing a VLOOKUP, and let's say we just have 3 cells here. I'll just kind of blow this up a little bit, and we have Rich, John, and Jim. And let's imagine now this data, notice it is formatted as text. So this is in a VLOOKUP kind of scenario where this is formatted as text. Okay. And what I want to do is enter a VLOOKUP. Again, I'm just doing this quickly in the interest of time. I don't want to make this all about an Excel. Oops, sorry. I want to go equal VLOOKUP and just select that cell, and then I want to fix this columns over here by hitting the F4 button, which will fix those columns there. I need to put 2 to say the second column in that data I want, and then false. So that will say NA, and that's strange, why are they all NA? Well, that's because over here we have a numeric formatted data, and over here I have that apostrophe in front of the 1. And you're constantly getting this type of data from clients or from auditees, and you need to convert that data in order to make it usable. So what I find in utilizing the conversion selected cells, what you can do is you have a variety of options, and we'll talk through a bunch of them today, but just in a more simplistic manner, if I can take these here, the first thing I could do is say, well, remove all spaces, and that actually did the trick, which is quite nice. But let me go back here and say, okay, let me go back to text. So I'm going to confirm I turn them all back to text format. That then now screws up my VLOOKUP. If I now go over here and take the cells and convert these to text as well, should work. Now I'm back to where everything does work in my VLOOKUP. And I've really struggled with this, and I use VLOOKUP quite a bit, and I always find that there are exceptions in my VLOOKUP, which is kind of annoying. Again, that's something that I like to utilize. Now, just in the converting selected cells, what are your options here? Maybe I'll just bear with me 1 second. I think I'm going to go back to my slide just to show you this. Hold on 1 second. And I think actually I might have an older slide here. Bear with me. I just want to make sure I have the most updated active data here. Yeah, I think we've added one, which is add leading zeros at the bottom, which is kind of interesting. I don't have that on my slide, so let me hold this section open for you so you can see it. Again, there's an ability, and we will use this in a few minutes when we're merging data together, where you're able to remove spaces, all spaces within data, leading and trailing spaces within data. You can turn things into uppercase, lowercase. You can get rid of non-alphabetic characters, so anything that is a number or anything that is something like a punctuation mark. Non-numeric characters, so it gets rid of all actual characters but doesn't get rid of numbers, or non-alphanumeric. I also like the removing hyperlinks function, where I find you get these hyperlinks and you'll click on the cell and it'll bring you to some hyperlink, and you didn't want that to happen. So just by highlighting the column or those cells and saying remove all the hyperlinks is a great tool as well. We did the cells to text. You could also do cells to numbers, and I find adding leading zeros as well is a really interesting tool, where you do get instances where a number will come in and it'll have leading zeros, and then another number comes in where it does not, and the added leading zeros will add that as well. But from a cell conversion point of view, I really feel that this covers a majority of everything that you would end up wanting to change within your data. So again, kind of going back on taking a look at cell conversion and data import conversion to clean up your data, I do find that the columns and the cell type functions are really some of the best functions out there to very quickly get things done. I'm sure there's a way to do it in Excel if you went to the if statement box and, oops, not that one. If you went to the if statement box and went through all these wonderful if statements that are out here, I'm sure you could find things like, I think there's an exclude, a find, a replace. There's all these different things that are in here that I think you could be able to find and try to utilize. But as opposed to trying to learn all that stuff, I do find that just utilizing these tools is just a quicker way. So